G'day and welcome to Aussie Vision and welcome to our preview show of this weekend's national finals actually, because we've got a lot on and I'm joined by members of the Aussie Vision team to help us go through each one and try and predict who might win or get through their semi-finals. So let's start with the big one who's deciding a Eurovision entry, Belgium. Now, guys, there's obviously we don't have all the songs yet, but we've got a couple of them and a couple of the artists. Is any song jumping out to anyone here that could take the crown?
Yep. So when I first listened to all the Belgium songs, it was initially 14 of them, but they're slowly cutting them down one by one. So eventually there'll be 7 songs in the final lineup, but 2 songs stood out of those 14. One of them was Ça m'ennuie pas by Shireen. That was absolutely fantastic. I did have some doubts about the live performance, but once I saw the live performance, I was even more blown away, to be honest. I reckon she's a real contender for the crown of Belgium. The other one that stood out to me was Oceanside by the Starlings. It just seems really catchy, really accessible, really radio friendly, and has all those ingredients for not only a jury friendly song, but also could capture some televote based on catchiness and accessibility. It just stood out compared to all the other songs. What do you guys think?
I'm going to go away and second that one. I was not terribly invested in this set of songs when they initially came out. But Ça m'ennuie pas very much sort of was the one where I was like, oh, that could be interesting. And then I saw the full version of this at 7 a.m. in the morning. And since then, I have been irritating everyone at work by singing the chorus because I think it is the best thing ever. She is channeling the spirit of Sandra Kim. She is channeling the spirit of Angèle. She is channeling every hyperactive girl singing in French that has ever existed. And that is basically my aesthetic. And so I'm going to be terribly disappointed if she doesn't win. My worry is that it's obviously Belgium alternates between broadcasters and it's a Flemish year. Interestingly, they have songs in French, but not in Dutch in the national final. But my understanding is that this is going out on a Dutch language channel. The Frenchies aren't going to be watching. So will the Dutch speakers vote for a French song? I hope they do, though, because it'd be worth it.
And surprise, surprise, I'm going to third it. Shireen's songs are just, both of them are actually really good. So I'm really happy that either of them pretty much made it through, and one of my top 2, I think, from that national final. But I want to throw out also Amira's 2 songs. I think Armageddon, especially, if we didn't get much of that song in the snippet, really to figure out what it is, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what that turns out.
That's really interesting you say that, Cooper, because I actually prefer her other song, Carnival. Really? That's one of my favorites, and I'll be really sad if that doesn't get through to the final 7.
I like both of them as well. Is she the Amy Winehouse-y sort of sounding one? Yeah, okay. I know. I really like both of her songs.
Look, I have to say, and I think the Carnival one might be the more favorite with the fans. Excuse me. Is it Shireen? Is that how you say it? Her name? Shireen? Amazing. I'm obsessed. It is easily my favorite song of the whole national final season so far. If it gets through, I could see this being my favorite for Eurovision. I mean, it's tragic. It's very 80s Sandra Kim. I was alive at that period of time. You 3 probably weren't, but I mean, I love it. It is so good. But I do agree with Laura. I think the Starlings, I think they're the ones to watch because I'm worried with what you said, Craig, there about the language issue. It's fabulous and it's amazing, but will the Frenchies tune in? I don't know. I'm a bit concerned about that. And I think the Starlings is very good and very accessible and something that I can just see Belgium voting for. I just think they're going to give us a robbed queen of the season so far with Shireen.
The Starlings are a little bit hooverphonic, aren't they? Like, you can just sort of see that happening. And I liked hooverphonic, but I think this year with the hyperactive French queen, I'm going to be disappointed if it is them in the end. But that's on me.
Yeah, they're very Ben and Tan meets Common Linnets in a way. I definitely think it's something that Belgium, especially the Dutch-speaking side of Belgium, would go for.
It's very Benelux kind of sounding. Everything in that sounds like that. So we'll see. And they sound like they're very good as well. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Well, that's Belgium. I mean, so Starling, Shireen, we're kind of picking, but we don't have all the songs yet. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on Sunday, but we'll have a Eurovision song. Now, let's move on to Estonia because the Eesti Laul semi-finals begin Friday morning here in Australia, Thursday night in Europe, and we've got 2 semi-finals over the weekend. A lot of songs there, but Laura, what are the ones that we should be watching for, like some of the big favorites that should get through and we want to see their live performances?
Okay, so semi-final one, I'd say has a lot of, well, they have some fan favorites in Ollie. I know Ollie's been getting a lot of love on Twitter, although it's kind of a bit of a more divisive song. I feel like it's a bit of a Vegemite song. You either really love it or you kind of can't stand it. So, but nonetheless, I think he will still have some televote support. Annette and Freddie is another one to watch. They are usually in the top of the jury vote. I know they won the jury vote the last time they participated in 2020. So definitely keep an eye out for them in semi-final one. Yannick as well has a song written by Morland from Norway, who participated in 2015 with A Monster Like Me with Deborah Scarlett. So he is also another name to watch. So I'd say those are 3 strong names from semi-final one. Now, 3 strong names from semi-final 2. This is where I think a lot of the heavy hitters are in this lineup. So you have Sissy, who has made the she made the super final last time she participated in 2021. She ended up coming second that year. She's the daughter of Dave Benton, so Estonian music royalty there. But she is very, very vocally talented, and I'm sure those talents will be showcased once again with Lighthouse. So definitely keep an eye out on her. Alika is 1,000% the one to watch as well. She hasn't participated in Eesti Laul before, but she did just recently win Estonian Idol. And the song that she's coming with in Eesti Laul is quite a jury-friendly song in bridges. It's got some really, really big names, including Wouter Hardy. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. So he co-wrote Arcade, which is only a Eurovision winning song, no biggie. So definitely keep an eye out for Alika. I reckon she's definitely going to be one to watch. She's got the jury side. She's got the televote side. I'd be surprised if she doesn't make the super final. Another one to watch out for in semi-final 2 is Elisa with Bad Philosophy. No,
she made the super final last time.
I know
she?
people are laughing, but she's made the super final pretty much every time she's participated.
Yeah.
She made the super final last year, despite having not one of the strongest live vocal performances because she was ill with COVID. So imagine what she can do now that she's well, now that she has a Stig Rastapen song. So Stig Rasta represented Estonia in 2015 with Goodbye to Yesterday and did very, very well for Estonia. So she's definitely another name to watch. Again, she could make the super final again this year.
Big names. Oh, yeah, go, Craig, sorry.
I was just going to pop in and say, Minimal Wind featuring Timothy also made the super final last year. So I'm just not going to say that, like, Estonia can go a bit sort of anyway. Let's just put it that way. But, good to see Elisa again. I'm not a huge fan of her song. Last year's was sort of a guilty pleasure, and this one just feels like it never quite takes off for me. So I'm more on the side of the 2 very impressive female ballads. I really like Sissy and I really like Alika. So I'm hoping either of them. I'd be happy with either of them.
I'm the same with Sissy and Lighthouse. It is one of my favorites of the season. Bridges I haven't caught on too much, but I would probably say that my one to look out for is Sissy. I think it's a great song and I'm really excited to see what she does with it live.
Yeah, I really want to see this live because I wasn't that super impressed in the studio. Not because I thought it looked very good, she sounds very good. I just feel like it's a song that needs a live performance. I felt it was lacking with chorus and something to hold on to. And I feel like it's a song that will improve with Alive. I think Alika is going to be great. I totally agree, Laura. This semi-final too is stacked. So many good names in there. Also want to chuck in Inga in that second semi. She's always been so good. And I think this is a great song that Inga's got this time around. I think it's a bit of an underdog. And Yanak in the first semi-final, bit of a guilty pleasure, as well as Unicorn Vibes in semi-one.
Oh, Unicorn Vibes.
Unicorn Vibes,
I
right?
love Unicorn Vibes too. I'm just fully prepared to see it not qualify for one reason or another. But I reckon it is the guilty pleasure of the season.
How many
get through from each semi-final? I've put 3. I've already mentioned 3 from each semi-final.
Yep.
So I might throw out some other names. So from semi-final 1, we have Andreas. He's a young up-and-coming singer and has a very chill sort of choice of ballady type, male ballad, ballady type song. So I reckon that's something that will appeal to a lot of the Estonian voting public. The other name I should mention is Bedwetters.
Bedwetters. I was going to mention
that. Bedwetters. Yeah. Sounds like a bit of a silly name to us English speakers, but they are, I reckon, similar to Black Velvet last year. They're another act that has a lot of nostalgic qualities for many Estonians. Like, they were popular back in the day. They have a bit of a 2000s rock sounding song. When I first listened to their song, I just thought this could win UMK if it was in UMK in Finland.
As a general, as a general theme, something I've noticed in a lot of the national finals this year is a couple of years ago we had like the 80s revival moment, and now it feels like we've sort of made it up to the year 2000. And there's a lot of songs in these national finals which feel like they would have been on the radio when I was like less than 10. Sorry, Dale.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I think I'm not in the right spot for that because the early 2000s was the period where I wasn't old enough to be part of like pop culture. And therefore I was mostly going, what cringe stuff are all the old people doing as a 10-year-old, So I'm hoping we move on to some other era fairly soon. Let's put it that way.
All right, well, that's Eesti Laul. It'll be very interesting. I think we're going to get a good sense of where some artists are at and who could take out the title after seeing these semi-finals. Could be Alika versus Sissy, but let's wait and see how it goes this weekend. Now, let's go to Norway. One of my favorites. I love Norway. And we're going to slight update this year to the format. 3 semi-finals. The first one this weekend. Cooper, you've been keeping an eye on this one. How many is competing against? Is it 7?
Yeah, so there's 7 in each semi. We've gotten rid of the battles, the duels that we've had for the past couple of years. So a lot more is happening in these semis now. And then so 3 qualify from that. So the big one, obviously, from this semi-final is Ulrike. She is returning from 2020 with Attention. She's back and she's got a song that I think has gone mental in the Eurovision fandom. Everyone's raving about it. And I do think personally it is it's like a perfect segue from Attention. For me, it kind of actually sounds like Hometown from the Eurovision movie. It is just like Eurovision to a T. It's Eurovision paint by numbers, which could also be polarizing for some viewers, seeing as Eurovision's kind of trending towards more of a contemporary radio kind of vibe. But yeah, she's definitely one to look out for. I would also say Queen of Kings by Alessandra. She has got the disaster bop of semi 1. It is just a lot happening in 3 minutes to your ears. I think that one's a really good one to watch out for. And also Umami Tsunami, I think they're called, with Geronimo. Yeah. That one actually is really, I've been enjoying it this week. I've been playing it a lot. It is just like pure pop. So I think they're definitely your 3 to watch out for this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely love Umami Tsunami. They're giving me like 2013 Justice Crew vibes. Bit of a guilty pleasure of mine, but back in the day, you could not escape Justice Crew. They were everywhere, and there's a bit of a nostalgic spot in my heart for Umami Tsunami. But one other name I think I should mention is, interestingly, Kate Gulbrandsen, only because she has a Moreland Pen song. So that's something to keep an eye on. But just because it has a name doesn't mean it's necessarily going to do well.
True.
which
Who
we could
knows?
probably see with Joust returning, with a song that I don't think is going to be faring very well this weekend. It's a lot of fun, but I think it will be left in this semi to be forgotten.
Don't be mean about Joust. I'm sure he'll have a lovely time on stage. I was going to say that the last couple of years, I think the fans have been very focused on the idea that we need to leave behind the sort of Eurovision song and we need to go for sort of cool, up to date, preferably a bit like out of the box music. And it's just really nice to see people like get around something that is unapologetically like a bit cheesy and a bit Eurovision and a very like and it's not apologizing for that. So I don't know. I think that's really nice to see, and I hope Ulrika does too, as well as everyone's predicting. Yeah, it'll be fun to see.
I think you're right. If you're going to do it, you got to lean in hard, and you've not got to try and do it in an ironic way. You've just got to go full on, or try to be serious in a way. She's just going full pout, full Husavik, full Fire Saga, full Eurovision of the Scandi throwback years of about a decade or so ago, which I personally love. It's great. And it's going to be really interesting to see how people take this and also how she performs. It's a big song. There's some big parts in that. And she sung attention very well, but let's just see how that all goes as well. But I'm kind of here for it. And I think at Eurovision, there is a desire for some nostalgia of the contest. So I think we saw that with Moldova's vote last year. I think we saw that with Kano. So I think if you lean in and do Eurovision really hard and really well, it can work. So I think it's a good risk for her as well. And I do like Kate's song. I think it's really lovely, actually, the one you mentioned, Laura, there as well. And one other one, sometimes the Norwegians just go for something really bland and boring and done okay, which is, I think it's Eric. Is it Eric? The kind of more like slightly Scandi country-ish one. Sometimes that done okay, they just seem to love it. I don't mind it because I'm a bit basic and love that stuff. It's done well. And it wouldn't surprise me if Norway weirdly went for that, if like those other messy ones, like Umami Tsunami and Alessandra, they could be a mess live. So if they're a mess live, something kind of dull that's just done well could get through. Any other thought? Anything else jump out of Norway?
I think we've pretty much named every single artist in this semi-final except the Fresco song. Yes. I'll point out, it is a very interesting number. It's got a lot of sounds, a lot of production choices. So I can't be sure what to expect about that one until we see it live.
Cooper.
Appreciate a lot of sounds, a lot of production choices. It was sung. It went for 3 minutes.
It was a song.
It was a song.
It was indeed a song. But when I first listened to it, I thought this sounds like I'm listening to like a smartphone commercial or like a car commercial or something. Like it just sounds like commercial music.
So speaking of disaster bops and songs that go for just 3 minutes and that's about it, Malta. They've got their first quarterfinal this weekend. Now, Craig, you are our Maltese expert. What are they doing this year? There's like 40 songs. What's the format?
Look, it's not Emma Muscat, but you know, it's there. And I think after last year's national final, I sort of was saying to people, I think there was actually a good core of like maybe 8 songs in there. And then they padded it out with about 3 times as many songs. And it sort of makes even the good songs look bad because they're in among all this sort of generic stuff and nothing really stands out. And then they decided to add another 16 songs on top of it. So, look, let me describe it this way. If you need convincing to watch MESC this weekend, you're going to see some of the highest quality advertising in a national final that you're going to get this year. And unfortunately, there will be some people singing in between. So, like, if you're there to see Irolosco's Kitchen and, you know, various exciting travel options that you could have if you live in Malta, this is the national final for you. And in between, there will be some music. So if we look at who's actually performing, and I stop being snarky for a moment, look, one of the biggest names is actually in the first quarter, I think. Everyone's sort of got their eye on Aiden. He was sort of Twink of the Year last year. He showed up. He was great. He could dance. He had a catchy song. And this year, he appears to be doing exactly the same thing. So I think without the wild card of Emma Muscat in there, who was there last year and is very popular, specifically in Malta, I think he's got a very good chance of taking it out this year. He has seemingly an endless supply of money behind him. He's very good at social media, and I can see this really going off as long as the song is as good as the 30-second snippet suggests. But while we're here, I will highlight a couple of other people who I think are worth paying attention to. On the 30-second snippets we've got Eliana Gomez Blanco, who represented Malta at Junior Eurovision a couple of years ago. We won't talk about where she came, but her song this year is actually quite fun. It's got a sort of like maybe 2007 Paloma Faith sort of upside down vibe going on. And I think that's kind of fun and it could stand out. We've got Clintes, who is a transgender performer from Malta, who's singing this really big ethnic-y sounding thing in Maltese called, I'm going to butcher this, but Lura Cut, I think it's pronounced. And then on the other hand, if you're there for a good laugh, we also have Anything Can Happen by Jason Scary, who is giving the best audition I've ever seen for the Wiggles in my entire life. And I think he's going to be great fun live, and I hope he has a great time on stage. And then also, I'm just going to throw a little bit of a shout out for Klinsmann, song Piranha, which has one of the worst lyrical metaphors I think I've ever seen in my life, where he describes his lover as like a piranha because she eats him up or she bites him or something. So points to whoever came up with that. The lyrics are good in Malta. Yeah, what does everyone else think?
There was one name you didn't mention that whole time, and I was waiting for you to mention this artist because I think that they definitely have a chance of taking home the win, and that is Brooke with Checkmate. I know she's not till semi-final 2, but definitely one to look out for.
That is probably the reason I didn't mention
quality
it.
songwriting. Yes. So
just this
and
weekend's
also Fabrizio Faniello, who participated for Malta in, I believe, 2006 with Try to Be Better. If you're a fan of those 2000s throwbacks, definitely give that one a listen.
He is trying to be better. It's just a shame about the results.
And
at least he's trying.
This year's MESC, I think, is going to be a lot more interesting because it isn't going to be a popularity contest, like you said, with Emma being in it. So I do definitely think Aiden's pretty much the front runner for this. It's his to lose. And also the entire national final as a whole, there is good songs, but once you add the rest, it kind of all just blends in together. So maybe I'll tune in and we'll see how that turns out.
And it makes it hard from those 30-second clips to try and get a real sense of the songs because it's just like, it could be the same song for a lot of them. But I did notice, particularly this quarterfinal, there's a lot of Maltese language songs, which is really interesting, which I think is more than kind of the usual thing for Malta. I think back to like the 2018 kind of national final, which sounded kind of as generic, but it was just all English and all really basic lyrics. So nice to see some Maltese as well. There was, I think it's definitely Aiden there to jump out. Fabrizio also won there. There was also a TikTok song, not as in the platform, as in it was called TikTok.
It really bothered me.
It sounded kind of okay. So that could be something. And also the fact that Klinsmann is almost soft rock. So I think that almost will stand out amongst a bunch of generic beige pop. And that Anything Can Happen song, if I had to pick one that isn't going to qualify, that's the one that probably won't qualify. But it looks like he's having a lot of fun.
That one's giving Jessica Grech Aphrodisiac from last year. And I'm going to enjoy it for every second it's on stage. But I've been really bean about Malta in the last 5 minutes. So just to save my reputation with the population of Malta, I'm always really impressed by the budget and the show they managed to put on in Malta. They're not a big country. They don't have a huge budget, but they absolutely love Eurovision. And like it always shows. I actually would quite like to see them put on the actual show one year because I think they do a great job even with the limited resources they have.
No, here. I think they do. They're so enthusiastic and it's great. And I think once we reduce the amount of songs down there, there'll be some gems there. So we'll wait and see how this works out. Well, look, everyone, thank you so much for your thoughts. We've covered all the there's a lot of national finals this weekend. We'll see how the results go and hopefully Belgium make the right choice. So thanks very much for joining us all and we'll catch you later.
Cheers.
Catch you later.